Well-respected and Tesla retail community favorite James Douma wrote a detailed analysis of why he sees Tesla's robotaxi and full self-driving as a service that will see exponential growth. He reviews and compares to previous technologies and explains exactly the reasons both for the early growth and for the moat. In the meantime, Chinese electric vehicle maker XPeng just announced that their new model due in a Q4 will no longer have LiDAR, but will go to pure vision cameras just like Tesla. This follows the CEO's testing of Tesla FSD here in the States. Now, does this mean XPeng is copying Tesla? Or perhaps they're preparing to partner with Tesla? Finally, China's BYD automaker has signed a $1 billion deal to build a factory in Turkey and just launched a new 2025 Dolphin electric vehicle with the same $14,000 price tag and more range. To help us cover and review all of this, I've got Hans Nelson joining us. Welcome, Hans.
Thanks for having me, Herbert.
Hans has his own YouTube channel called Hans C. Nelson. Check him out there. So James Douma has a very long article. We won't necessarily cover all of it, but he's made some incredible points. And you and he and the people that I turn to tell me more about FSC's technology and their strategy, you kind of translate a lot of what James sometimes says. But in this case, I think he was very straightforward and pretty easy to understand. Great article. So let's cover that. He called it full self-driving as a service. So it's in that alone is interesting. He didn't call it robotaxi, but he does refer to robotaxi. Tesla robotaxi is going to demonstrate software growth rates in its early years. On top of that, it'll grow to significant market share and keep that market share for a long time. Now he's going to explain to you how he came up with that conclusion. He starts explaining about what happened to Skype. So Skype in 2003, they launched an internet protocol voice service. Within a year, it had 1 million users. A year later, it had 50 million. It was the fastest growing new technology in history. Now, the reason why he says it worked was because it substituted directly for an existing widely used service. Everybody was already doing long distance phone calls. So it's not like you're trying to train people to do something new. It's just that they needed to do long distance phone calls. Now, it's a much lower price point. Using already available infrastructure, everybody already had personal computers and internet. So these points are very important. If you have that criteria of something that's widely used already and it's already existing infrastructure, then it'll go fast. It didn't need to generate demand because demand for phone calls was already widespread. It didn't need to distribute new equipment or build new infrastructure. It was a direct substitution of an expensive service that hundreds of millions of people use frequently. All it needed was a software download and a cheap sound card. So though the growth was novel at the time, similar explosive growth have occurred since then, right? So we saw the same thing happen with Google Docs, Slack, Zoom, Spotify, Airbnb, Uber, Netflix. They all had high growth in their early years. And so for all of them, durable even in volatile and competitive areas. So what he says now is we're going to see Tesla do something similar with robotaxi. Why? Because everybody already has smartphones in every pocket. Millions of FSD-capable Tesla vehicles are already on the road. The road infrastructure everywhere that people want to go, that's all that Tesla needs, just whatever you're using now. They don't require cities to redesign something. Robotaxi directly substitutes already for Uber and for taxis. That's already used by billions of people and does it at radically lower cost and general convenience. Thoughts on that first point that he made?
Yeah, I love the way that he's broken down the exact fundamental principles that allow these massive technology adoptions that are very, very quick and very, very transformative to occur. And just for people to let that sink in, that it's a service that uses infrastructure that already exists and does not need to be added to provide a service that everyone already uses at a price that is less than they pay currently. Those three ingredients, if it can do those things, and at the on top of that, it is quickly scalable. That is the formula that allows us to see these hockey stick adoption curves that we've seen, over and over again since this time. The most recent one being the fastest growing, adoption product in history, which was ChatGPT. And so this is, a well understood set of dynamics now that we've seen kind of over and over again. But we haven't seen it happen to a physical, real world application like this in a few years. It's, really since Uber and Airbnb, that we've had one of these types of dynamics play out.
Let's continue on listening to what he says here. So, and he's now talking about the moat, right? So Skype actually did not have a moat, but Tesla does. So Skype had first mover advantage. That was enough to get them a huge valuation when they were acquired by eBay in 2005. But they had no durable advantages over the many competitors that quickly emerged. There were no technical obstacles preventing incumbent services from dropping prices. Long distance was a very high margin business time. They just kept it because of monopolies, but they could easily cut the price. By contrast, Tesla has a durable advantage in the robotaxi space. So it is the only entity with an existing fleet of millions of robotaxi capable vehicles already deployed, uniquely positioned to rapidly ramp up the manufacturing base for a new generation of low-cost self-driving. They're going to be the fastest to build cars. No other large volume manufacturer makes electric, software-driven, internet-connected vehicles with all-around cameras, redundant computer-controlled critical control and sensing systems, and powerful compute. Nobody else has a data center infrastructure, the domain expertise, the custom hardware design and manufacturing capabilities, and the massive software development resources. Nobody else is vertically, where are we now here? Vertically integrated and self-sufficient in their ability to bring together all the elements to make widespread robotaxi service a near-term reality. And there are no credible candidates for another company that might gain those in the near future. Tesla's unique. I love that he explained finally all the little details, the big details. Incumbents cannot just lower the price, just like long distance company could have, because their transportation is a low margin business, and to compete, others will need to field their own low cost robotaxi, right? Because the only way to Uber to do this is they have to not pay their drivers. How can they not do that? To do that, they'll need to master high volume EV manufacturing, develop the software infrastructure for mature internet connected fleets, develop both the hardware and software full self-driving. This is going to take quite a bit of time. And so a few people abandoned their phones when they started using Skype, but in 20 years later, phones and phone service still exist. But phone service was forced to adapt, and under the hood, internet protocol dominates telecommunications today. So it changed the way phone calls are made. In the same way, robotaxi will not eliminate conventional vehicle use overnight. Many people will switch to it, but many more will use it alongside incumbent services. Probably most personal transportation will gradually give way to self-driving cars, but beyond this, self-driving vehicles will, like the internet protocol technology, be the foundation for an ecosystem. Thoughts on that, Hans?
Yeah, I think that the points that he made about the actual full vertical integration of Tesla is one that people just continue to struggle with. You know, we were talking in a previous conversation about Tony Sakanagi's view on the robotaxi market, and that Tesla's not going to be the only one who's in that market. And while that's true, they're not going to be the only ones. They are the only ones whose vehicle cost is going to be below $30,000. And so if you're looking at Waymo and Cruise as credible competitors to Tesla, but Waymo and Cruise cost 100,000 to $200,000 to put one on the road, and they're not made at the manufacturer with all of the correct sensors to operate, and they require way more compute power to operate than a Tesla. Then all of the fundamental elements of what make that vehicle a robotaxi are less efficient and less effective than the Tesla version. And so how can you expect that to be a credible competitor in the long run to a car that costs less than $30,000 to manufacture and comes directly out of the factory with everything necessary to operate as a robotaxi? Like, the only way that you believe that that's uh, not going to outcompete Waymo and Cruise is that you assume that it cannot do what Waymo and Cruise can do, and that you actually do need lidar and all those things in order to solve this. And I just don't believe that is the correct bet, given where artificial intelligence technology is these days. So I think that's what underpins why Tesla is in a very strong leadership position with respect to being able to capture this market over the long term, like some of the geographic monopolies have in the past that have been majorly adopted, like Uber and like Airbnb. Um, and if you build on top of that and you just say, hey, this is like Uber and Airbnb that were real world services. When they initially launched, it was obvious that these were transformative companies and opportunities and business dynamics. But it did take a while in order for there to be Airbnbs that were available pretty much anywhere that you wanted to go in the major markets. And, it started in Western countries, primarily the United States, and then kind of expanded beyond that as well. But now they operate in hundreds of countries. Like, you can find Airbnb almost anywhere that you want to go. And that took quite some time. And the same will also be true for full self-driving. But just because it's going to take quite some time doesn't mean that anyone else is in a position to
Mhm.
eat into Tesla's leadership position during that long period of time. Um, and I think that's the overall point that James is making here.
I love it. Yeah. We're going to go deeper into his actual financial or the numbers the metrics he's using to the cost of operating per mile versus Tesla versus Waymo versus others. So the thing for others to compete now is, do you believe LiDAR will be a solution versus just vision only cameras? And then do you believe that you need to have neural nets versus just code? And now we're seeing, despite all the controversy, everybody says, no, LiDAR companies are going to compete. Waymo will compete. Well, you're starting to see lots of companies saying, no, they realized Tesla was correct. Here's one of the first examples, of course, XPeng, a Chinese EV maker. XPeng says their new model due out in Q4 will ditch the LiDAR and move to Tesla's pure vision solution. It's pretty well over. You and I have covered this so much. Or so many times already, with all these LiDAR companies failing, and yet there's some believing that LiDAR will still somehow succeed as a technology. The plan to ditch LiDAR in an upcoming new model is a major shift for XPeng. Elon replied to that tweet, and he just put 3 dots. I think he's saying, hey, I told them. And this is what
Doomed.
happened. Doomed. And he said this 5 years ago. Anyone relying on LiDAR's boom. He said this 5 years ago. Let's listen in.
What we're going to explain to you today is that LiDAR is a fool's errand. And anyone relying on LiDAR is doomed. Doomed. Expensive sensors that are unnecessary. It's like having a whole bunch of expensive appendices. Like one appendix is bad, well, now they want to put a whole bunch of them. That's ridiculous. You'll see.
You'll see. Isn't it great?
Ridiculous.
He says this 5 years ago, and what did we hear? We had a barrage of all these people saying, are you kidding? You're wrong. You are the crazy one just going to, there's no way, just cameras alone. And he just said, well, it's first principles. If humans have eyes, that's all we need.
Yep.
But no, why would you do that? LiDAR is radar. It collects all this information that humans can't see. And then the explosion of LiDAR companies and the investments, they're right. Tesla's wrong. Well, this is not the first one, by the way. This is not the first one. We have many, many LiDAR companies go out of business. Many founders of LiDAR companies now say vision only. So doomed. You'll see. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, if you've been listening to Elon and you understand his line of thinking, it's pretty hard to argue. If you've got a sensor that was starting out as, hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's cheaper now, but not that much cheaper, versus what, a $10 camera that comes inside of an iPhone, like for that sensor, plus a neural net, and you're already running neural nets. So a few $10 cameras plus a neural net that you're already running can provide you with the exact same functionality about localizing yourself in an environment that a $100,000 originally sensor that's coming down to, oh, maybe now it's only $1,000. Well, $1,000 is still a heck of a lot more expensive than less than $100. And that's the core that this drives down to is, do you believe that a camera plus some neural nets can do the job that LiDAR is doing? And not only can it do that job, it can do a whole bunch more jobs, because guess what you're never doing with a LiDAR? You are never reading a stop sign. Doesn't matter how cheap
Right.
that LiDAR
Can't
gets.
read.
It's never
Yeah.
going to do that. And so you already need the camera and the neural nets anyways. So if the camera and the neural nets are things that you already need, you can't do without them. They're already way cheaper than your LiDAR. And all you've got to do is figure out how to make the neural net on the back end of that camera smart enough to do the job of the LiDAR, which it absolutely can do. Then what is the point of the LiDAR? That has been the argument since day one. This is an argument that people still fail to understand, and they are doomed.
Yeah,
And it's been
they're doomed.
ridiculous.
But yeah, that people are still fail to understand it. That's absolutely true statement. But at the same time, it's already proven. Elon and Tesla has basically proven you don't need it. And so what do we have here? We have XPeng just published this. They said our CEO did an in-depth test drive with Tesla's FSD in the US. How did FSD perform? How is our XPeng's program and FSD similar, and how do they match up? So they did a video, and I'm just going to quickly play a little bit of that so you can see it.
他在干什么？我怀疑，说不定 FSD 是有的智慧了
Might
，maybe
think like a
想请我
human.
们喝一杯咖啡了。他的 SR 上还有很多的内容没有画出来。我觉得这个弯可以给他99分啊，他现在看不出来那是一只鸟啊。
小鹏汽车 XNGP 在国内在红绿灯方面做的会更好一些。
最终无人驾驶会打败99.999%的司机。
也期待特斯拉来中国跟小鹏扳扳手腕。
Okay, that's official video from XPeng and the CEO. And you can see all these statements, just very, very bullish. Okay, full self-driving is getting 99.999% better than human drivers. And then the tease that they have is who's better in China. And his answer, of course, just to save a little bit of face, is that our program is much more designed for China's roads. Tesla's not yet. But he praises Tesla significantly. So this is the debate you and I are having. A lot of people are having it as well. I think that XPeng is setting themselves to partner with Tesla. That's why their next generation vehicle, Q4, is going to have the vision only. You're thinking, and we'll get there, just I want to share a little bit more information. You're thinking that the Chinese government has a strategy of what they're doing. I love your thoughts there. So just to add a little color here, XPeng started the development of their next generation LiDAR-less ADAS last year. They'd already made this decision last year to not do LiDAR. And today's news saying that they're going to have a vehicle coming up in Q4 without LiDAR, that's not a surprise anymore because they already did that. And then also regarding vision only, and then also using end-to-end neural networks versus code, a few Chinese players had already abandoned this. And we've been reporting on this already. A lot of the Chinese have made this move, and unfortunately, Waymo, Cruise, the Americans, they have not done this move. But the Chinese knew it. They started this. So you're talking about Li Auto, Huawei. They're experimenting with their own vision-only end-to-end approach as well. I expect all tier one, basically new electric vehicle that includes hybrids to ditch LiDAR sooner or later. This is Ray. He's a well-respected Tesla community member. So you said this, in case you don't understand, the CCP, the Chinese government, wants to make sure that they have a homegrown fast follower to Tesla in case following Waymo doesn't work out so well for the other 90% of their bets. In other words, Xi Jinping doesn't want to go all in on a bet against Elon Musk. So you're saying maybe the government is kind of promoting these guys to copy them fast because in case Waymo doesn't work out. And just yesterday, I reported on this. This is Tom Zhu, Tesla's vice president. He was have a meeting with the government. This is the premier of China, and he spent a lot of time telling them about full self-driving. So China is embracing Tesla. What's your thoughts on what might be happening here?
So just being a leader in transport in the future is a huge strategic objective for the CCP, that they want to be leaders in both electric vehicles, but also autonomous vehicles. So they want electric autonomous vehicles to be a category that China as a whole dominates over the West. And if it were not for Tesla, they probably would, in fact, be the leaders in some of these technologies. Autonomous driving, maybe not quite yet, but they're working on it. And, we can see just a corollary, they have recently released a model called QN that in the LLM space is on par with, in most cases, viewed to be superior to the open source models that are developed in the rest of the world, including the United States. And so, their ability to follow with artificial intelligence technology quickly and actually move to the top of the leaderboards in those categories is something that we are already seeing in other important areas. And I think it's an area that they have aspirations to do in autonomous driving as well. They, have put a lot of investment of time and energy into these other robotaxi startups that are mimicking, for the most part, Waymo and Cruise and their uh, method for solving the problem. And I think it's becoming clear the more that Tesla executes that Tesla's approach probably is going to outcompete Waymo's in the long term, even to the government in China. And so now it's like, I think this is the beginning of a shift away from the Waymo approach towards the Tesla
Mm-hmm.
approach. Xiaopeng is going to be kind of the tip of the spear of that change. And like I said, I don't believe that Xi Jinping wants to bet against Elon in the way that he thinks this technology is going to shape up over the long term. The CCP has tremendous respect, and just China in general has tremendous respect for Elon Musk because of both his work ethic, but also his ability to execute on these major technology fronts that they aspire also to be exceptional at. And so that's why they have invited Tesla to be, the only wholly owned foreign company that's operating in China that doesn't have to have a joint venture, is because they respect Tesla so much and they want to put their own best efforts up against Tesla in a competitive market so that their efforts have to match Tesla as a competitor because they want to be leaders in the world. And right now, after I had a very fun and engaging, exceptional conversation with Michael Dunn on Farzad's channel last week, and I would recommend to anyone who wants to understand the Chinese market a little bit better to do that because Michael provides incredible insights on that front. But it's shaping up that Chinese OEMs and Tesla are the absolute future of pretty much the entire global automotive industry. And anyone from almost anywhere else is really at a disadvantage. And that includes all the names that you know and love, whether they're German, whether they're Japanese, whether they're American. If they're not Chinese or Tesla, they are in a world of hurt over the next decade. And that's that dynamic of inviting the best competitors, because that's how I think China has gotten to this place. Is they did all these joint ventures with all of the world's best automotive manufacturers over the last couple decades. GM was there. You had all the German auto manufacturers were there. A little bit less cooperation with the Japanese, but that's kind of understandable. And they used those players being in their market and having, learning from them both in cooperation, but then also in competition, how to develop their competitiveness to a level that was superior to those companies. And now we're seeing the results of those other companies in the Chinese auto market are just being decimated. Like GM is down below 50% of their peak sales in China. And that's only going to continue to get worse. And so they use this dynamic of competing with the best people that they can get access to in order to just improve. And I think that's what's going on here. And I think that we'll see the same dynamic play out in the autonomous vehicle space, that it's going to primarily be Chinese competitors that are going to be trying to go head to head with Tesla.
Okay. I'm willing to make a bet with you. I do think that Xiaopeng is going to be a partner, license it from FSD, from Tesla. You can just by listening to what he's saying, watching what they're doing, we'll see. But I agree with you. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying
I would 100% agree that Xiaopeng would like to partner with Tesla. and that even the, I think there would be strategic reasons for the CCP to support a partnership with Tesla
Mhm.
like that. I don't know that Elon would be open to engaging in that partnership or not. Maybe, maybe not.
Well,
I would
no.
think if I was Elon, I would not personally.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that he won't. He obviously has access to a lot more information than I do. But there's a game of leverage that you have to play, and that Elon has played very well. You don't get to be the only wholly owned foreign company operating in China,
Mm.
or automotive company operating in China, because you don't understand how to play a leverage game, with the CCP.
He wants a lead. He wants a lead. I
And
see.
yeah,
Yeah.
so by partnering with a Chinese company and licensing FSD to them,
Mm-hmm.
if he feels like he can do that without sacrificing Tesla's ability to maintain a pace of innovation lead over Xiaopeng, as long as he feels like they can, through
Yeah.
pace of innovation, outcompete Xiaopeng, they might do it. Personally, I don't know that that's a wise move, just from a
Okay.
geopolitical
I
standpoint.
think that's selling cars is over, or it's not over, but it's not going to be the thing anymore. It's going to be like a percentage of the monthly revenues. So you go license this to as many partners as possible, and you get a cut. It's going to be just fine in terms of their margins. Okay, well, we'll watch that. What happens? So this is just finishing up. It says here that Tesla's assisted driving system hasn't used LiDAR from the beginning. And in China, all local electric vehicle makers were using LiDAR, except for this one Baidu-backed GU. Now, of course, as we just reported, that's changing. So the plan to shift for Xiaopeng is big. The company was the first in the world to install LiDARs in their production vehicle. So last month, the CEO experienced Teslas during a visit. We just shown you that. And Xiaopeng is seen as one of the strongest players in China's smart driving space, with its Xiaopeng navigation guided pilot assisted driving feature now covering almost every city in China. Ditching it is becoming an industry consensus. That was just a point I wanted to make there, to people realize that we're not just saying it. It is becoming an industry consensus. Executives from a number of local EV makers have made frequent references to end-to-end AI over the past few months. And Xiaopeng said in May, it realized the use of, and they need to use that. Okay. So here's James.
Let me jump
Yeah.
in one and make one point right there, and it'll be a very fast point. We like to think, because we live in America and America is the greatest country in the world, that whatever is happening here is the most important thing happening. That is not true in the automotive market. The Chinese auto market is more than twice as large, and they have some of the most discerning customers in the world.
Right.
What happens in the Chinese auto market right now is what is going to happen in the global market. And as
Agreed.
Americans, most people do not understand that. And so
Yeah.
we can have Wall Street analysts like Tony Sacconaghi say that, Waymo and Cruise are credible competitors to Tesla. If the Chinese do not agree and they move wholesale in the direction that Elon is moving,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter what happens here. End-to-end neural networks and camera-only vision solutions to full self-driving robo-taxis will be the solution that dominates the next 2 decades.
Industry consensus. Very good point. Much bigger than people realize, and especially in the US, is no longer necessarily the leader. All right, a couple more big points here. Here's James. I just wanted to show this number, that when he modeled out exactly how much it cost to run a Tesla robotaxi versus, let's say, a Waymo, he gets $1.21 per operating mile for Waymo, but 28 cents for Tesla. Not exactly 5 times cheaper, but very close to that. And then the reason is because of Waymo's depreciation of the cost is 70 cents versus just 4 cents for Tesla. So it just costs way more. Waymo costs way more in almost every other category because of this. So he's just saying they're going to switch. They have to switch also. So we'll see what happens there. So this is just a couple of big news here. BYD inked a deal for $1 billion Turkey plant. And they did that because of this. There was this EU did move forward with their tariffs that they're applying. And it's like 38%, except for BYD that got the a smaller amount that only BYD would only be charged 17% charge added to the 10%. So they're a little bit lower, but still significant enough. So when BYD built a factory in Turkey, they can get around this. And so they already have built a factory in Thailand. They've got planned for factories in Brazil and Mexico. So there's no, doubt about that. They're moving global, and they're going to get around these tariffs. And so this is what I just said here earlier. So, and also they just launched a new Dolphin electric vehicle with $14,000 price tag and more range. It's actually a good looking car. The Dolphin is a very big best-selling car in China, and they're very good. It's a very, very, so they have different models. There are 4 trims. They're what they call Vitality, Free, Fashion, and Night. And the Vitality model starts at $14,000. So you can see it here. There are 4 models, and the battery is pretty decent. 260 miles. That's all you need, really. 323 miles for the most expensive one at $18,000, $14,000 to $18,000 US dollars. So this is what Tesla will need to. Not that they need to, because these guys have the the lower end market, but Tesla will be hitting this. And then what happens if Tesla has robotaxi? It'll take time, but that's a good solution for this.
Absolutely. And that's, I'll just once again echo something that Michael Dunn was saying, that we think that because we don't see Chinese vehicles, if you're driving here in the United States and you look at every vehicle around you, you're not going to see a Chinese vehicle. And this is really the last place in the world where that's true. That if you are in Europe, if you are in South America, if you are in Asia, if you are in Australia, you see Chinese vehicles already starting to take over, and it's only going to get more and more. And this is, it's very easy. If you want to say we can't ship cars directly from China to your shores, well, I'll just set up a factory in your country and I'll produce them there. And you're still going to have to deal with the exact same competitive threat that you were going to have to deal with before. We're just going to give you some jobs while we're at it. And this is exactly what happened during the Japanese invasion in the auto market here in the United States. That at first they were importing these cars from Japan. Eventually, these Japanese companies had to set up factories here in the United States. But either way, our homegrown auto manufacturers had major loss of market share, and they've shrunk, and they've continued to shrink just over time, from making mass market vehicles for the world now to just making trucks and SUVs for American consumers. And that's pretty much all they make anymore.
Great points. Thank you so much, Hans. I really appreciate this. You got your James Douma, and then you got the Hans additional commentary. James is amazing, isn't he? That he doesn't just say things.
I really appreciate him.
He doesn't just say things. He does research. He does deep, really, very thoughtful approach. And we got to talk about it today and share that with the audience here. Thank you so much, Hans. Follow Hans on his YouTube channel, Hans C. Nelson. And then go check out that video that he did. He was there with Farzad to interview Michael Dunn. Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.